He wasn't at his assigned seat.
No, so I had texted. I was just going to wait for him there, but I went ahead and texted him to let him know. Are we?
Yeah.
I went ahead and texted him to let him know I was there, and he said, "Oh, well, are you going to be here through the end of the game because I don't have the thing with me?"
What?
And I was like,
What?
What do you mean you don't have it with you? Well, it's up in the somewhere away from where I'm at. And I said, well, where are you at?
See.
And he said, I'm here, but I'm up on the mezzanine. I don't know what you call it. I'm up here. I had to go to the bathroom, get something to eat between games. And I said, okay, well. He goes, the problem is that bag is way around on the other side. And I got to be down there in 2 minutes. And I said, well, I'm not staying for the whole game, so we need to figure something out.
Yeah, because he should have had it with him.
Well, that's what I kind of would have thought, that he would have had it there with his equipment.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's plenty of room. Since he told you to go with him and see him there.
But anyway.
What we're talking about, folks, is we had sent, I had actually shipped it.
Yeah.
Internet to Scott Galletti, who did the Goddard games for us, not this past weekend, but the weekend before.
Yeah.
And instead of him shipping them back to me, he was just going to give it to you since you were in Albuquerque for the Bulldog game, and then, but then you went to the pit for the cheerleading deal. And when did the girls cheer?
They did the 2:00 game, so they did it at halftime of the 2:00 game. It was a good game. It was Las Cruces against who did they play in this? It was a semifinal game. Of course, Las Cruces ended up falling to Volcano Vista, so it was Las Cruces against one of the other schools there in Albuquerque. I can't remember which one. And it was a kind of a strange game. I was expecting fireworks and, high scoring. Las Cruces was 32-0 coming into that game, and the other team was, I guess it wasn't a Trisco Heritage. It was one of the Albuquerque schools, but they were very good too.
Yeah.
Las Cruces had their stars, one of them 6'11", one of them 6'8" or 6'9", and then they had just star-studded cast, 32-0. And at the end of the first period, I think it was 17-14. I mean, at the end of the half, I think it was 17-14. So there was, and to me, it wasn't like they were playing tremendous defense. It was just either way. I didn't think. I just thought that it was kind of a boring. The one team, and I wished I could remember who it was, but they were trying to just play. They weren't playing keep away, but they weren't being really aggressive on offense. And then at Las Cruces, when they had the ball offensively, they didn't go into their bigs, and I couldn't figure out why. The other team's big guy was probably 6'5".
Yeah.
So 6'11" is a pretty big height differential.
That's right.
The other guy was good. He could jump. He was very athletic. But they just didn't feed it down inside like I expected them to. And we didn't stay for the second half. I know that it sounded like, based on what some things I read, that they kind of started going down to their posts in the second half. And because, again, when you got a 6'11" and a 6'9" on your team that are good, which they were, they're Division I guys apparently, or they're college athletes apparently, you'd think they'd really go down in there. Maybe they did in the second half. Anyway, long story short, and it's funny that you said I shipped the internet. I wonder how many people out there are going, what is he talking about? You shipped the internet to...
an internet router.
Right.
Is what I put in a box and FedExed it up to...
And so Scott's such a good guy. He's kind of quirky.
Yeah.
The guy you were talking about, Scott Galletti?
Galletti.
Mm-hmm. He was calling all those games for a radio station there at the pit. He was calling all the games for a radio station there in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And so when I went to get it, I just went down. I went in through the media place, went right down the ramp, went right just like I would have if I was covering a game. It's kind of funny, too, because nobody even said a word to me. And I didn't have it on my neck. I had it in my pocket, the pack. But anyway, so I guess anybody could have just walked through there.
You're a known entity.
No, I don't think so. Nobody even looked at me. But I walked down the ramp, went to where his spot was, and they weren't there. It was between games, but that 2:00 game hadn't come up yet. And so I called him, and long story short, we got it.
Yeah.
He was able to get it. It wasn't with him. It was somewhere else in the pit. And he said, well, I got to be back down there in 2 minutes. And I said, well, is there any way you can grab it? I'll see what I can do. I'll be right down there.
Yeah.
And he did. He found it, got it to me, and so everything was fine. Cheerleaders did really good. I think they were the Artesia girls, for those out there that don't know, they were part of what's called a halftime hurrah. And I don't know who does it, the NMAA maybe, I'm not sure, but they invite cheer squads from around the state to come and do their routines. I guess they can do whatever they want, but I think all of them do their routines because the state competition is this week.
Right.
There at the pit. And you have to be invited. Artesia was invited. They did that game. So it's kind of strange because you're not doing games for their teams.
Right.
Even if the Bulldogs were in it, we would have been scheduled for that 2 o'clock.
Sure.
5A game. And Goddard and us, so the 2 cheer squads from 2 of our district's cheer squads did that halftime hurrah. And Artesia did really well. I think they were pleased with it. And so we're looking forward to their for all you Artesia fans out there, Artesia fans of all things, cheer is part of that, and they're doing their state competition this week. So hopefully they're looking to win the state title. Yeah. Hopefully they do.
Well, and it's a fun thing to do because I remember before Sally Marcus became the head of the NMAA, she ran that.
She was the one that
she was there down on the floor making sure all that was going, and it was quite a orchestration because the halftime ends, the teams leave the court. Then they roll the mats out.
Yep.
Then the cheerleaders come out and do their things. Then the mats get rolled up, and it's all done within that
10-minute or 12-minute window. I think they had a 12-minute, but and two cheer squads did it. And the way that they roll those out is they have, because I've been going up there for years now, and I've watched it, and they have like high school wrestling teams, football teams. I don't know if they're volunteers. I don't know if they call it like I think it was La Cueva Wrestling or Rio Rancho Wrestling. I don't remember. It was a wrestling team from one of the big schools. So they were standing in the ramp area with their, pushed over against the side before halftime. And the cheer squads had got up before halftime, and they were sitting up in the arena. And they go down and they go up behind them. Mm-hmm. So they're all kind of lined up one side. If you've never been to the pit, there's a ramp that leads down into the floor. And so we could see them. We saw Artesia girls get up and go down and go up into the pit and get behind those boys that have all the mats. So when the horn blew, the teams had to go down up the right side because they were all smashed in on the left side. And then as soon as they exited the court, what you said happens. Those guys, the boys from La Cueva or wherever they're from, they bring those mats out, they roll them out, they get them all set, and then the girls come on and do their stuff. The boys wait on the sides, and then both teams are finished. They roll them up, get them off, and here come the teams.
Yeah.
So it is quite an orchestrated event.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. And going back to the Artesia game at Highland, which was on Wednesday night.
Right.
Bulldogs hung with them through most of the first half. They kind of got a little behind in the third quarter, cut it down to 9.
Yeah.
And they just, I guess, came a little bit short. But, all in all, it was a pretty good game.
Really, really good game. That team from Highland was, I think, one of those once every 2 or 3 decade type of team. They kind of had just a group of big guys. In New Mexico, at the 4A level, it's not like you have a lot of years, year over year over year where you got, the bigs. But they had 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", and they were really good. And they ended up winning the state title, which I expected they would. But absolutely, the Bulldog team played fantastic. And hopefully those that didn't purchase it to watch, if they listened to me on the radio, I did it justice trying to explain what they were seeing because it was a really, really good game. Our boys played really, really hard, and they played really well. You always can have better, improve, but the team they were playing was so much bigger, and the fact that our guys hung with them the way that they did, it was 80 to 70 something, I think was the final score. So a lot of points scored, and that wasn't the way it was in a lot of the other games. They were low-scoring affairs. Our team played good defense, but also went at them offensively. And so anyway, it was good. It was fun to be there and to call it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens for the basketball team next and move on. Well, let's talk Pecos Valley Bassmasters. What's happening with the fish?
Well, so nothing's changed since last week, really. We have our next tournament coming up the 2nd and 3rd of April, so in a couple weeks. I think that's the right dates. Let me pull up my calendar.
Okay.
It's the first weekend in April.
Which would be the Friday is the 1st and the
so the
Saturday,
2nd and the 3rd?
2nd and 3rd, Saturday, Sunday.
And it is in conjunction with the New Mexico Bass Nation. As I've talked about all this year here on the radio, we're doing one-day tournaments this year, and that's going to be that way this weekend. So the first tournament is on the 2nd, and the second tournament is on the 3rd. It is individual as we're fishing with New Mexico Bass Nation, so boaters versus boaters, non-boaters versus non-boaters, and it's at Possum Kingdom. So it's the farthest. Possum Kingdom Lake is north of the DFW area. about 30 or 40 miles further than Hubbard Creek, which was one of our farthest lakes. But Possum Kingdom, I think mileage-wise, is our longest distance lake, with Amstead and Possum Kingdom coming in there. Hubbard Creek coming in the close second. But so it's a good drive for our guys to go. But it's a really good fishery, big lake, and lots of places. They have lots of docks, lots of rock, lots of brush, basically everything that you want to have in a bass lake, that lake has. They've got lots and lots and lots of boat ramps. It's a very well kept lake. So I really like Possum Kingdom. I've had success there over the years. We've only been fishing it with our club for the last 4 years, I think. They may have fished it, because our club was started back in the 70s. But since I've been with the club, which has been about 15 years now, we had never fished it up until about 4 years ago. And I really like the lake. It is a long ways to go. It is expensive to stay there. It's not really a town. It's a Possum Kingdom lake. There's not a town. There's people that live all around the lake, and there's some convenience stores where you can get your fuel and things like that. And there's a few restaurants. But it is an expensive trip. But that's bass fishing in southeast New Mexico. We got to travel.
Yeah.
We got Brantley close, but anyway.
Yeah.
So Possum Kingdom is what we have coming up, and then we are going to fish Brantley in April. Just one day, not a 2-day tournament, or not 2 days of tournaments. We're going to have one at Brantley the end of April, and that will be a team tournament. So those of us, and I don't think I'm going to be able to go to Possum Kingdom. I didn't go to Amstead, which about killed me, and now I don't think I'm going to Possum Kingdom. But those of us that don't go to Possum Kingdom out of our club can look forward to the additional tournament at Brantley here in April. As we're still in March now, but April is about half a month away, and that's when our next tournaments are. So Possum Kingdom on the 2nd and 3rd, and then Brantley the end of the month.
So when you have a huge lake like Possum Kingdom, does everybody take off from the same boat ramp, or do you kind of decide where you're going to take off from, and it may or may not be close to somebody else?
Really, it's for us. Our tournament director makes that ultimate decision. We've definitely done what we call trailering in the past. We might all meet at a boat ramp so that we can all be there and everybody checks in, but then the tournament director can say, okay, go to the boat ramp you want to go to. Don't start fishing until this time, and then it's just on our honor. Mm-hmm. At Possum Kingdom for New Mexico Bass Nation, I think that they can put in anywhere. They've just got to be at that boat ramp in the water for blast off at that particular boat ramp, wherever the boat ramp is designated. And typically, that's how it's done for most tournaments. As long as you're there and check in on the water, because with a big tournament like New Mexico Bass Nation, they'll do all the checking in on the water. You'll get your number the night before, your boat number. So say your boat number 27, they're starting with number 18. So that means you're 9th in line. They'll call that number out, and you've got to go by the boat dock and wave at them. We're here. Show them your live well that's running. Kill your boat. All those things have to be working. Your kill switch, your boat, your live wells have to be running. They got to see that those are working. And then you go on, and that's how they blast off at big tournaments. For Pecos Valley Bassmasters, generally speaking, we all meet at a ramp up in the parking lot. We look at everything, talk about it, and then we put into the water, and then we blast off together. 5 to 10 boats type of thing. Generally, the tournament director will blow his horn, and everybody goes. So it's possible either way. You may have to. They may require this year New Mexico Bass Nation. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that says this. If I have, I've forgotten it. They may require everybody to be at the same boat ramp, or they may just require everybody to be in the water at that, so you can put it in somewhere else. Because it's a big lake. There are a lot of boat ramps, and so if you stayed close to that boat ramp, then you'd probably just put in there. But you may have stayed, wherever you got your room or your house or whatever you're staying in for the weekend, somewhere around the lake where there's a boat ramp, and you may just put in right there and then run across the water to that boat ramp. Give you a long answer to an easy question.
It just kind of depends what the tournament director.
It depends on the tournament director, really. If they, I don't think that they will. Like I said, it's possible that you could put in and then not fish until a certain time. But for New Mexico Bass Nation, they do check in on the water. So whether you put in somewhere else or not probably doesn't matter. You just got to be at that dock, and then come through the line at your called number, and then they look at everything. The tournament director standing.
So when
there.
you go to a big lake with all kinds of different water features like that, what do you look for to get started? What are you looking for? Rocks?
Personally,
yes.
I like to fish. Generally speaking, I like to fish on points with rocks. And it also depends on the time of year. So if whether it's cold or warm or whatever, but I like to fish rock and or brush. But I've never been much of a boat dock fisherman until I started fishing in Possum Kingdom. There's just hundreds, if not 1,000, of those boat docks scattered around the lake, and I learned how to fish those. I just never really had done it and never really fished much on them, but I like. So at Possum Kingdom, I would probably, if I do go or if I were going, I would probably look for boat docks that somebody else wasn't on and see if I could get fish off of those. But I personally like, depending on the year, I may be out on the points on rocks and trees, brush, or I may be up in creeks on rocks and trees. Those are my two favorites.
Okay. And so you'll kind of scout around on a big lake like that and see where those types of conditions exist so that you can
and that lake's full of them, you know. I mean, it's full of those types of conditions. There's a lot of reeds, which I've never been a big reed fisherman, but cattails and things like that. Basically that lake has every that I can think of, every type of bass structure that a person would want to fish, and not all lakes do. Some of our smaller lakes don't have all that.
So do people sell like fish maps? Like, here's where the fish are biting?
There are. You can go to the Texas, I can't think of the website, but just like in New Mexico, there's a website. You can look at the current lake conditions. You've pulled it up here before on while we were doing the show and see how fish are biting, and that's just based on people turning information in. So So, no, I don't think people sell maps. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to go to the locals and say, okay, tell me.